I keep on thinking there's limits, and then we break through them, and then, oh, there's like this complete other avenue of asset classes or connections. I mean, you're in control of your own future, and the only thing that's limiting you is the thoughts that you have about what you're able to accomplish. So you believe in what you can do, the possibilities are limitless.
What if you could reclaim hours of free time each week, create legacy building wealth, and devote more energy to your passion projects without giving up on your career as a life-saving MD? Dr. Vikram Raya is a functional cardiologist, high-performance coach, and real estate expert, is here to give you the tools, strategies, and solutions you need to transform your life, unlock your limitless potential, and achieve greatness, all while freeing up your precious time. Welcome to Limitless MD. Let's dive in.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Limitless MD. Today, we're going to break down a couple of powerful topics: STRs, tax optimization, how leaving your current W-2 and doing things such as locums and telemedicine can completely upscale and 10x your income, and how to live what my good friend and guest Ryan Mallory calls halftime freedom. If you're ready for this level of opportunity, buckle up. This is going to be a good one. Ryan, welcome to the show, my brother.
Thanks for having me, Vikram. I'm really excited to be here and talk about all this.
So guys, for those of you who don't know, Ryan went from being burnt out, just coming out of his fellowship, working, getting beat down as a cardiologist, not having the autonomy, not having the free time, not seeing his children, and working an insane number of hours without a real clear path to freedom, to where now he has a $3 million portfolio of real estate with his wife. He gets to spend amazing vacations with his children. Him and his wife go around the world and travel to Paris, to Europe, to different parts of the world. They're thinking about doing a luxury STR in Barbados just for the fun of it. And they have a significant portfolio that is now spurning enough income to where now they can really decide when and how they want to work. And he's done this all the while still crushing it in cardiology. So Ryan, I'm so excited for you to share all these techniques with our audience.
I'm happy to share with my journey, Vikram. It's been a lot, but I'm really happy with where we are right now and can't wait for the future.
So let's go back, because this seems almost too good to be true for most doctors. In your origins, when you were in fellowship and you're getting out, what was the recommendations? What was the language patterns people were using to you? What was the mainstream path, if you will?
Well, when I was coming out, it was coming out during the pandemic, and really I wanted to secure a job that I was able to build a practice over the first 2 years, and then have a steady stream of procedures and patients that I could then, take care of myself. So start out with a salary position, work into something called an RVU based reimbursement schedule, and really just try and get as many procedures as I can and become a master at my trade, get involved in advocacy with the, American College of Cardiology, and just become as involved in the cardiology world as I could.
That sounds like a phenomenal path. In general, that sounds like the right thing to do. So why didn't it work out?
Well, I kind of followed all the recommendations, and things started out okay. But with the pandemic, the closest job I could find was 45 minutes to an hour away. So I started having a commute, and as much as I tried to balance being at home with my family and being at work, there was just a lot of demand for my time. There was, urgent procedures at the end of the day that would cause me to miss pickups at school, missing recitals because I couldn't find time off. I found I didn't have control of my schedule, where I kind of thought I would. I'd be able to, create my life how I wanted it to. And I found that I had some strings attached to it, and the balance started tipping the wrong direction. I got home to get home at bedtime. My relationship with my kids, which I thought was fantastic, became a little more transactional than I wanted it to be. where I was just sometimes trying to get them down to bed so I could get back on and read some more imaging because I was behind or catch up on charts. And the balance was off. It wasn't what I practiced, trained 11 years to get to. And my wife and I decided that we needed to make some big changes to get things where we wanted it to be.
So, I mean, if I hear most doctors out there, they'll be like, "Hey, that's part of the game. You're supposed to do that until you eventually become a senior partner or you become higher up in the practice. Why not follow the traditional pathway? Like, why not stay the course? I mean, what was it? Was it that bad?"
Well, when it's the little events that then kind of become more frequent, and when you start not being happy going to work, or just trying to rush through your day and losing kind of some of the passion you had for coming into the job, where you're trying to get through a patient interaction to get on to the next patient rather than actually connecting with the patient and thinking about how you can make their day better. There were just a lot of balls I was juggling, and I wasn't enjoying it as much as I expected to. And, I was getting signs at home that, I was there, but I wasn't present. There was constant drag pulls back to work. And looking long term, I didn't want to do this for 5 to 7 years. I'd taken a lot of sacrifice to get to my early 30s, to get to the profession I wanted to be. And I thought there had to be another way that I could practice how I wanted to and have some control over my scheduling. And so then my wife and I started asking the right questions, met the right people, brought us to you. And, from there, through some connections, we've really just changed things up tremendously.
So let's talk about that. What I heard was you started asking better questions, and you also said, "Hey, is there a way where I can still have the things I want and still practice the way I want?" And so you were looking for a different future than the one that you were going to be going down, and you made a decision. But for those guys who are listening and they're on that path and they're like, "Hey, is there a better way?" How did you find the better way, or how did you have the courage to do something different?
Well, to start out, I need to clarify. My wife was the one asking the questions. She's a fantastic woman, and she is a growth mindset. And I was a little stuck in my ways. I'd been told this is kind of the way you do things, and I was resistant to that change, to that insecurity, that discomfort. But I really valued what she was saying, and she kind of led me down the path to start talking to other people that had a different experience. And I kind of came out of that, mindset. It was a little more limited, that this is how it's supposed to be, and found that really there's a lot of opportunities if you kind of shift what you focus on and what your goals are. And importantly for me, stop caring about what other people think, and
Boom.
thinking
I
of
think that's it, man. I think that's it. Stop caring what other people think, right? If they're not living the life you want, their advice is probably less valuable. Would you agree?
I would. I was, getting good advice, but it was coming from a place of someone else's experience. And once I worked with you, and you connected me with somebody else who had a completely different experience, and their advice is completely counterintuitive. But the more I went down that pathway of getting into locums as a full-time job, the more my world opened up, and we've really just been able to make some fantastic changes.
So now that you've brought up locums, let's explore this topic. Locums have been around for decades, and initially it was for people who ended their career, they just wanted to have fun and retire and stuff like that. Then it became for people who were not fit for the mainstream because behavioral issues, or they got fired, and so it's like when you go there, you can never come back to mainstream medicine. Have these stereotypes of locums changed, and how do you see it as almost a holy grail that doctors can tap into?
I think it's completely changed. I think the pandemic helped fuel that, where I wasn't the only one looking at the being a W-2 employee and realizing that work was encroaching on lifestyle. And so locums has now become an opportunity for regaining autonomy, regaining control of your schedule. I think there were a lot more cardiologists, other specialists that were in private practice had a little more control over what they wanted to do. But as the pendulum swung and everyone became an employed physician, I found I had to ask permission to just get half a day off and sometimes spend a morning struggling, juggling just to free up some time. Whereas now with locums, I schedule my family events first and then my work around it. Part of it is due to the physician shortage. In cardiology alone, I think 25% of the population is over 60. They can't train new cardiologists fast enough to make up for the demand. So there's a lot of places that aren't big cities that need somebody to keep their doors open for heart attacks. And so I said, rather than commuting an hour, what if I fly and I stay somewhere for a couple of days and then come back? But when I'm back, I'm completely off. I'm completely present. And once I started looking into it, there was tons of opportunities available. I found the right locums company, and now I work 12 days a month. And the rest of the time, I'm home completely present with my kids, doing all the stuff that I was really missing out on, that connection. I have a 7 and a 4-year-old. I'm like the coolest person to them right now. That's not going to last forever.
Yeah.
I'm hoping it will, but at least right now, I want to be as present and involved as possible with raising him, and being an amazing husband for my wife as well. And I've been able to tip the scales back in favor of the priorities I have with my life.
So, if I'm understanding this right, you did research. Your wife was asking really powerful questions, and it made you second guess the path you're on. You started finding people who've done different paths, and they're very happy, and they're more the lifestyle you want. Now, when you started exploring locums, did you feel like you're sacrificing income, or you have young kids? People are like, oh, I can never do locums. I have young kids, or I have how are all those challenges? How are you able to navigate those?
Well, first I was worried about the time being away from family. It's like I'm trying to spend more time with them, but I'm going to be gone longer. But then I looked at how many hours a day was I truly present and with my kids, and it was 1.5 to 2 hours at the end of the day. I said, okay, if I take 5 of those days, that's 10 hours of time, and I'm gone. But then the next week I'm back, and now I'm waking them up, I'm getting them ready for school, taking them to school, picking them up, taking them to practice, spending the evening with them. The amount of hours that you are actually with your kids and spending time with them and being their dad, and not being distracted by what's going on your phone or what is waiting for you on your computer, it's so much more. So that was one thing that I got over. The other important part is we got some family support. My mother-in-law, moved in with us, and she's been instrumental in helping take care of things while I'm gone, and my wife is working full time. But when we got that support system set up, I started going away, and I asked my daughter every so often. She's like, "I'm so much happier with what you're doing now compared to before." So it's just great to hear that from her. That
Yeah.
I feel like I'm doing the right thing, but she's also recognizing that as well. So that kids realize quality more than quantity. They're very intelligent, and I'm getting more quantity, and the quality is just so much better.
Yeah, I wrote down, not only did you increase quality, but you increase quantity, even though it seems paradoxical. Other thing was, yeah, if you have family, great, but I'm assuming you either made more or same amount, but half the time. And so with that, you could potentially hire someone else to help if you needed to, right? So there are optionalities. If you want to make it work, you can make it work. So let's talk about the income. Do you actually get higher reimbursements doing this?
Absolutely. And that was the other thing. I've been focusing on family, but on the work side, I go to work, and if I've got a long day, I've got a base rate, and then I've got overtime. So if I have to stay there late, I'm getting compensated for my time. And I had last week I had a 14-hour day, and I compared what I made as a salaried interventional cardiologist. I looked at all the procedures and patients I saw, and looked at if I was in an RVU-based model. And then I looked at what I made as a locums. And as a salaried interventionist, I would have made 30% more as an RVU based interventionalist. But with my locum shift, I actually made almost 3 times as much for that day as I would have.
So give me an
if I
example. What
was.
is it like? What's the delta? Like,
So I mean, we're looking at $3,000-4,000 for a day's work when you're really having a tough day, which was a typical call day for me, and that was additional income that I earned. And I found that I wake up the next day sleep deprived, but I feel a lot better about it because I was I was helping someone, but I also was taken care of. And so I show up different for my patients. I'm
yeah,
happier. I'm not as rushed. I'm
yeah,
not incentivized to try and see as many as possible. So I'm answering a lot more questions for their families. I've had a lot more people ask me to be their cardiologist because they're realizing stuff that they didn't figure out before, and it's almost like a preventative type consultation rather than doing procedures. But I'm doing what's best for them. I love being in the cath lab, but
yeah.
at the end of the day, I'm trying to impact people's lives.
So it sounds like it's affecting all the categories of life: family, time management, income. Now we're talking about satisfaction, autonomy, and you're actually providing better care. You have more time with these patients. And there are parts of the country where there's not that many cardiologists, so they're very grateful, a different patient type. So it seems amazing. And then I know the last thing, we'll talk about real estate in a second, but as you started getting to the real estate game, the time away when you're not with your family, you use that time wisely where you're actually doing double duty, double dipping in a way where, if there's dead time or you're back at home in the evening and there's nothing going on, you could do Netflix or you could work on your STRs or on your short-term rentals, right? And so it's really like you're getting paid to become wealthy.
Yeah, I was able to, and I chose places that they had a need, but they weren't necessarily high volume. So there were some downtimes during the day, and we launched a short-term rental business, and you have to meet material participation. Basically, you have to work a certain amount of hours in order to get the tax savings. And I was able to do that during my shifts. So, if you get off at 5 or 6, you've got 4 hours until you go to bed. I structured it so that I took some of that time. I went to bed on time. I woke up early, and I was able to put in a lot of that material participation while I was away. And so when I came home, I was just completely off and focused on family. So we were able to grow our real estate portfolio without any added time of me being away from
Yes.
my kids and their events.
And it's called net time, guys, no extra time. So, while he's already being quote unquote siloed off in doing cardiology work, if there's dead time, that could be because there's no kids, there's no spouse, so you might as well take
No
advantage of that
excuses.
time. Huh? No excuses.
There's
Yeah.
no excuses.
so okay, so this is very, very powerful. And I think it's a valuable option, and there's multiple reasons to do it. What's if someone's wanting to get into locums, what's sort of like the step 1, step 2, step 3?
Well, step one, I mean, you can do it one of two ways. You can do what I did, where you put in your notice and you've got 4 to 6 months, and then you have to figure it out, which is kind of what I did. I heard that there was a demand and I was going to figure it out. And by the time I got to 6 months later, I had a full schedule and I haven't had any issues since. Also, you can do locums on the side if you're 0.75 or even if you're full time and you want to try a weekend and see what it's like. You can do that while you're still doing your W-2 if you're not sure, and see what the experience brings you. You get a little extra income. Now you're away more and you also have a full-time job. So I don't know if that's the best long-term, but you can test out the waters, and then you get involved with a locums company, or you find hospitals and do direct contracting yourself, and you're a 1099. You're your own business. So really you make a lot more decisions, and you can structure it however it works for you and your family.
Okay. So I'm going to just pivot here, and we're going to talk about short-term rentals. So I think for any W-2 physician out there who is paying a significant amount of taxes, this is one of the lowest tax optimization thresholds to achieve, where it's very difficult to write off W-2 income. But with reps, which is real estate professional status, you can, start to optimize, expenses. And so the number one expense most physicians have is taxes, right? It's probably 30 to 50% of your where your money goes. And so having meaningful progress toward that is important. And so there's two ways, right? The reps can happen through this STR loophole, which is only 100 hours, or you can have true material participation in traditional real estate, and that requires 750 hours. But either way, having a vehicle such as locums can help accelerate both strategies. So can we talk about how did you start into STRs? Wasn't it risky? Everyone talks about Airbnbs. Isn't it too late? Isn't there too many Airbnbs already out there? What are the fears you had, and how did you overcome them and get started?
Yeah, of course. So the gold rush for Airbnbs, where you just buy something, put it on the market, and have it rented out or gone. Everyone's caught on that it's a great asset class and gotten into it, but that doesn't mean that all the markets in the entire United States are saturated. There's some markets that seem saturated, but it's based on the number of bedrooms that you have. Basically, what offer are you providing guests compared to those around you? So it's a really great way to shelter taxes. But going into it, what I kind of realized, but got it more fully as I got more of them, is you're creating a business. This is not a syndication where you invest your money and then you let it be. You have to put in material participation the first year, so you're hands-on doing everything. And then when you're done, you can hand it off to a property manager. Now that's 10 to 15% of your income. So it's important to know what markets to go into, how to underwrite it correctly, get all the expenses down. And that underwriting process, if you nail that, you can set something up to get tax savings and then make it passive, whether you're putting in systems with a virtual assistant to manage it or you're passing it off to somebody else. But getting that the tax savings with cost segregations, bonus depreciation, I look at the amount of hours that I put in and how much I saved in taxes, and it was more than worth it. But it's a very steep learning curve. You're going from medicine where you weren't taught any business strategy, any tools, marketing, sales, revenue management, and you're learning all that from scratch. So there is, a learning curve, but if you find people that can help you get there and kind of give you an idea of what potholes to avoid, it goes a lot smoother. And so I sought out other coaches to help me with that, to make sure I made the right investments. And, we're very happy with where we are right now. And it's, generating additional passive income. The first year is kind of tough because you're just getting your reviews in and getting the reputation up. But then the next year, you can be off to the races.
So what I'm hearing is steep learning curve, but a lot of benefits. I mean, let's say you never got any passive income. Would the tax benefits itself be worth it?
For the first year, yeah. And then you have to look at long-term compared to putting your money into a debt fund. Is the return worth the time? But, this year, we put 2 short-term rentals in service, and I sheltered my entire income from locums, like paying no taxes.
So a simple strategy for guys who want to get into real estate, don't want to go too crazy, but want to learn an asset class, buying one STR every year and then getting that powerful tax break from the bonus depreciation coming off their active income. That would be very powerful, right? And
yeah.
I
say I want to make a caveat that the bonus depreciation has been phasing out. It's currently at 40%, but the current administration, there's a lot of signals that they're going to go back to 100%, which makes this strategy very powerful. It hasn't come to pass yet, but a lot of experts are anticipating it'll get there and then be retroactive. So
yeah, I was going to say the retroactive is going to be very exciting.
At least to the beginning of this year. So getting started, learning what to do, because you don't want to just buy a property and then figure it out. You want to go in, have the underwriting correct, and then get a property. So getting started now to know which properties to go with, and then that change comes, be ready to pounce, because once it comes back, everyone's going to be, rushing to get the same type of tax savings. So being prepared, I think, is important if you're looking to do this.
And I think physicians, entrepreneurs should look at the tax code? I mean, what does it incentivize people to do? It incentivizes people to start businesses. It incentivizes them to buy real estate, right? It's smart, right? And not necessarily day trading stocks. I mean, even though that can be very smart and if you're very good at it, great. But see what the tax code is incentivizing you to do and try to do some of that, because it's probably a win-win. All right, let's talk about like the STRs and what's realistic to expect. So let's say someone spends, I don't know, $500,000 and buys an STR. What kind of cash flow can they get per month and per year? And
Well, you're
you
trying
have to, different markets, I get it, but just ballpark.
right. Well, your goal is to try and get 15 to 20% cash on cash. The 20+%, it's still there, but it's more difficult to find. And to be honest, you probably have to do some type of renovations or add amenities, sink a little more cash into it initially to make it a better investment. But if you're looking at, your goal is about 15% return on your investment. Now, the first year with the bonus depreciation, everything comes together, that's 100%. You can almost get your down payment back with those tax savings and then use that to purchase another one the next year. So having that upfront tax savings helps with the momentum, but then you want to make sure that can float on its own afterwards.
So let's say back to my example, $500,000. So that's probably, let's say, 30% of the down payment. So it would be like a $1.5 million purchase. And so if that's my amount of money spent, I'd get 20% of that back in terms of cash flow. Or is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, you're looking at gross revenue. You want at least 20%, and then you've got some expenses. So you could get maybe 50 to 60,000 net.
Yeah.
If
so
you do
$100,000 gross, of which you can take home 50,000. So, guys, that's to get. For most people, we teach in Limitless this concept of financial stability, where all your basic necessities are met. And so if you're getting, starting to work toward, getting $5,000 a month or $50,000 a year, that's amazing, right? So you're starting to chip away at what we call non-clinical income. So that's where you're sitting on the sofa and money's starting to come in. And so, and that's just one STR. And as you start stacking, or if you get into multifamily or other asset classes, you start building this passive income to where it doesn't matter if Medicare cuts reimbursements or, there's another pandemic, you have this income coming in regardless. So it's actually, you're protecting your family with what you're doing, Ryan.
Yeah, it's diversifying my sources of income so that, like you said, one of our colleagues in electrophysiology, I think they had ablation reimbursement cut by 30% by the government one year.
Oh, wow.
Right. And then they had to adjust. And again, I'm all about autonomy, controlling my own destiny, and I just don't like having to be reactive. I want to be proactive with how I structure and live my life.
So you've come a long way. 2023, January, you're just, in the weeds working for a hospital system. You're even trying to do some advocacy on the Hill, hoping that, cardiology would change. But instead of trying to change the system, which is very, very challenging, especially a national system, you ended up architecting your own destiny. You and your wife, Asina, decided, hey, there's a better path that way. You learned about locums. That was one of the opportunity vehicles. The second opportunity vehicle was short-term rentals. So now you're starting to give back, in a positive way. You've launched a company called Halftime Freedom. Tell me about your mission. Tell me about what you're trying to accomplish here.
Yeah, so my mission with Halftime Freedom is to help other physicians that felt the same way I did realize that there's another side to medicine in regards to autonomy and control of your schedule if you're in a W-2 position. And there was a lot of uncertainty and a lot of doubt. I want to help alleviate that so that you can get over that initial hurdle and experience the life transformation that I have. I want everybody to be able to feel the way that I do, where everything's in balance. I'm happy. Family's happy. I want to provide that to others. And I realize there's a lot of sentiments and uh, traditional beliefs that kind of make it difficult to get started. So I want to help them do that.
That's awesome. So why? What does it mean, halftime freedom? Where did that name come from?
So as I was thinking about it, when I started, ended up the sweet spot for me was working 12 days a month. And I looked at it and I was like, I'm basically working half time and making the same amount as I did before, number of days. I mean, hours is maybe a quarter of the hours, and I just, the big thing I got back was my time, which I used to leverage into freedom. And so I think that really sums up the new lifestyle that I've created, and one that I want for everybody. You start working half time and you regain your freedom.
I
So,
love that. I love that. I
but
love that. That's awesome, man. And I would say, when people probably are listening to this, I think you're one of the smart ones starting this a little bit earlier in your 30s, but I think most people are halftime in their life too. This is
sure.
like a mid-career. They have like that 7-10 years into practice. They're like, damn it, there has to be a better way, and maybe
It,
what you're going to provide is a solution.
yeah, you have time freedom. The other thing is, as you're in practice 7 to 10 years, sometimes you get used to the diagnoses you're treating, the stimulation of learning something new uh, might leave you. This is a whole new skill set, a whole new class that you can dive into and learn. And we've been trained to take complex information, uh, synthesize it, and act on it. Real estate is not anatomy. It's a lot more straightforward. So physicians can do just about anything they put their mind to. They just have to decide to do it.
I agree, man. I think doctors and healthcare providers, dentists, we have this sort of edge, this edge of going through tons of schooling, tons of delayed gratification, a lot of synthesis of information, and we physically and mentally had to be prepared for it. And so now, when we're here on the other side, why not leverage that skill set and just learn these seven-figure, opportunities, such as real estate, such as um, businesses and things like that. So it's awesome. So tell me about how people can get into your ecosystem, your universe. How can they be involved with what you're doing?
Of course. So you can visit my website at halftimefreedom.com. You can find me on Instagram, Ryan Mallory, MD, posting content about what my lifestyle looks like, things that you can expect. If you go to my website, I've got 2 free downloads that can help you look at either short-term rentals or locums. There's a 5 steps to take control of your career handout, absolutely free. Tells you kind of the basic steps to get started that you can start thinking about. And then if you want to know more about how to shelter taxes, I've got a free handout that talks about the steps to do material participation and bonus depreciation and how that works. So I'd love for you to come over, get some free materials. And then, if that's interested to you, I've got blueprints to give you all that information to get started that I kind of had to figure out and pay a lot to, different coaches, $40,000-$50,000 that I'm giving that information to you to help you along the way. Or at least we can do a consultation called to discuss your situation and what works best for you. I want to help any way I can.
Love it, man. Love it. So I'll end with 2 questions. What was a book you've read in the last 12 months that made a huge impact on you? And number 2 is, if I gave you a year's worth of signage in Times Square, what message would you want to be displayed for the whole year?
So one book that's had a great impact, my wife referred it to me and found it. It's called The One Thing by Gary Keller. Focusing on the one thing that's going to make everything else in your life easier. For me, that was changing into locums, and it's really paid dividends on everything else. And he really synthesizes that mindset very well. So I would pick up The One Thing. It's a fantastic.
Yeah, that's like a foundational book. I can't tell how many times I've given that one away.
Yeah, and then the Craig Ballantyne's book about the perfect work week that you've taken and made for doctors. That was also very influential and helpful. I just got to put in a plug for your book.
Thanks,
that was
man.
fantastic.
Great. And if you had a message you want to share with the world, what would that be?
I think the message that I'd want to share is that you're in control of your own future, and the only thing that's limiting you is the thoughts that you have about what you're able to accomplish. So you believe in what you can do, the possibilities are limitless.
Love it. Thanks for the limitless plug.
It's a great term. I keep on thinking there's limits, and then we break through them, and then it's, there's like this complete other avenue of asset classes or connections. We moved to a different city because I was now location independent. Allowed my wife to negotiate a contract because there was no concerns about, are we going to have income? There's just so many trickle down effects that has improved our life. Limitless is the perfect way to describe it.
Well, you are truly a limitless MD, my friend. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Vic. I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you again for supporting the channel. Thank you again for listening to these interviews. I hope this was really meaningful and powerful. I know I learned a lot from it too. So, guys, until next time, be phenomenal.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Limitless MD. If you found value from this episode, I encourage you to share this episode with a friend and let me know by leaving a review. For more information, make sure you check out the links in the show notes below or simply visit vikramraya.com. Until next time, be phenomenal.